had a great mentor. His name is Charlie Tremendous Jones. And he had a quote. He says that you are the same today as you'll be in 5 years, except for two things: the people you meet and the books you read. It's who you hang out with. It's what you put in your head that determines your character as a person. In high school, if you hung around smokers, you're a smoker. If you hung around jocks, you're a jock. Same thing applies today. If we hang around people that are positive and solution searching, then that will be the conversation that plays in our head. If we hang around people that complain, gripe, and moan, then that too, unfortunately, will be the conversation that plays in our minds. You know, it's interesting because he would say, the people we meet in the books we read. And in my case, it's the people you meet in the books you're in. You see, I happen to be an author. I've been published now in 150 different titles, 45 languages, have a star on the Walk of Fame, 2 honorary PhDs, but I'm dyslexic. What does that mean? I can't spell, can't read, can't write. Play me words with friends, you'll win every single time. And the secret is you work your strengths and you surround yourself with your weaknesses. You see, I've got the gift of gab, but I'm not a great writer. So I realized surrounding myself with people that would play at something I'd struggled at, my life would never be the same. When you do your first book, you write something called a query letter. Basically, it says who you are, what's your message, why you're an expert, who's going to read your book. When I did my first title, I was turned down 268 times in a row. The 269th publisher said, hey, we're going to do your book. All we want you to do is change the title, the beginning, the middle, and the end part. And I didn't blame him. I'm dyslexic. It was like dog beaver boat car. It made no sense. And I said, well, what do you do? And they said, you need a ghost writer. So I sought someone out, and they took my words and crafted it in a way that people would go on to actually enjoy. In fact, the first book I did, one quote from that book was shared 37 million times. It's on bumper stickers, T-shirts. You know, you've seen it all over the place. You didn't know it was my quote. It says, a dream written down with a date becomes a goal. A goal broken down into steps becomes a plan. And a plan backed by action makes your dreams come true. A very famous quote, turned down 268 times. And the question is, what if I would have given up after 50 rejections, or 150, or 212? But by persevering and not letting another person or myself talk me out of what I knew to be true, had the opportunity now to inspire the lives of literally millions of people around the globe. So much so that the Napoleon Hill Foundation, you know them best for the Think and Grow Rich books, asked me to write the first ever, I'll say the next evolution of that chapter. And I did a first book called 3 Feet from Gold. It's a story about a guy named R.U. Darby. He goes out west and he has something called gold fever, but knows nothing about gold. He starts digging in a hole, and sure enough, he finds a couple nuggets. He gets all excited. He goes back home and tells his family and friends. They chip in money to buy equipment to pull it out by the ore cart. And sure enough, the cart comes out and it's filled with gold. Woohoo! He's going to be rich! But then the gold ran out. They kept digging. There's no more gold. He kept digging, but the gold was gone. Defeated, he walks out of the mine and says, I quit, and sees a junk man walking by. He says, hey, buddy, come over here. Give me $200. I'll save you the mine, the deed, the equipment. I'm going back home to something I know that's safe. Well, the junk man surveying the equipment realized it was worth $10,000 because all the family chipped in, gave him $200 before he could change his mind. Well, guess what? Darby goes home defeated, a quitter. But the junk man, he goes to an engineer and says, what happened? This cat had gold and ran out. And the engineer starts laughing. He says, that's mining 101. Everyone knows that gold runs in a straight line. It's called the gold vein. What Darby did is he came in one side, hit the treasure, pop back in the dirt. He says, go back to where they discovered the gold, go 3 feet, just 90 degrees the opposite way, you'll tap back into the vein yourself. Not only did the junk man pull millions upon millions upon millions of dollars out, but that's what still fills Fort Knox today. And the moral is, how many times have we or someone we know quit one class short from a degree? Or sales, or marketing? It's easy to quit. But it's the people that persevere and go that extra 3 feet, they're the ones that we tell the stories about. And after the great success of this, I got to tell you, one person I met, this guy actually just blew my mind. If you ever watched the TV show Big Bang Theory, Sheldon's trying to figure something out called string theory. But the guy who did, his name was John Schwartz. I sat him down and said, John, I got to know, what is the definition of success? Why do certain people succeed and other people quit? And here's his answer. He said, successful people seek counsel, but failures listen to opinion. I said, what's the difference? He goes, well, opinion's based on ignorance, lack of knowledge, inexperience, like all your family friends around the barbecue who's never done what you're about to venture upon. He said, counsel's based on wisdom, knowledge, mentorship. People already paved the way. So if I go to a family friend around my dinner table and say I'm going to write a best-selling book, they're going to do everything possible to talk me out of it, to protect me, to keep me safe because they know I'm dyslexic. And guess what? They've never written a best-selling book. But if I sat down Jack Canfield or Mark Victor Hansen, who wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul, they're going to say, Greg, sit down. Here's what you need to know, and give you counsel based on wisdom, knowledge, mentorship. John Schwartz said, if we would spend our activity only seeking counsel and ignoring people's opinion, that is the day and that is the moment your life would change. And the big question is, why did they make the word dyslexia the hardest word to spell for dyslexics? I've never figured that part out, right? And from there, I got to go face to face and knees with amazing human beings. But I feel compelled to tell you one quick story. One of my favorite interviews of all time was a guy named Steve Wozniak. You know him, the Woz, right? He started Apple Computer with Jobs. And I said, how is it that you created so much wealth and abundance? I just don't understand. And he said, it's easy. He said, we embraced our lack. So what do you mean? He goes, we embraced what we did not have. We didn't run from it. We ran towards it. And I said, you got to tell me the story. He said, when these little microchip processors came out, they were very expensive. He goes, Jobs sold his car. I sold my calculator. We pooled our money to buy one of these little magical devices. He goes, but Hewlett-Packard and IBM, they were rich. They would make machines that go from point A to point B with 20 chips. They had all the money of God. He said, so I'd take their machine and I'd pull away 5 and get it to go from A to B using only 15. I'd pull away 5, get it to work with 10. He said, eventually I found a way to go from A to B using our single chip. He says, we weren't trying to be innovative or cool or aerodynamic or slick. We could afford one freaking chip. He goes, but by embracing that as an opportunity, we found the shortest, cleanest path. And by doing that, we changed the way people do personal computing for the rest of the world for the rest of their life. He said, where could you be right now in your own life, in your own business, if you stop looking at everything as your greatest challenge and obstacle, but it could just be your greatest blessing and opportunity in disguise? And after meeting these amazing people, from the folks who started NASCAR to Miss America, from Mrs. Fields cookies all the way across the board, they always say, do you have a favorite interview? And here's mine. It came from a poet, a philosopher, and a wordsmith, Evander Holyfield. You know, the boxing guy? I didn't see it coming. I said, Evander, I go, what made you so special? How did you win more heavyweight championships than anyone in history? And he said, that's easy. He said, I have a higher standard. He said, in sports, I showed up early, I left late, I invented exercises. I had a higher standard and I won more championships than anyone. He says, where could you be in your own business if you raised your standard? I said, but Evander, be honest, didn't it hurt being in a fight? He says, yeah, it hurts, but when you're in a fight, you don't focus on the pain, you don't focus on the blows. As soon as you do, you end up on your back knocked out. But that's what people do outside the ring. They focus on gas prices, war, economy, COVID, and then they wonder why they never become a champion. He pulled me in tight, an Adonis of a man missing half an ear bitten off by Tyson. He said, you know what the funny thing is? He says, when you do win the championship, he said, everyone comes to their feet and they chant your name. They raise your hand in victory, and the guy puts a big, shiny belt around your waist. He said, at that moment, and at that second, you don't feel even one of the punches you took along the journey. But the guy in the losing locker room will have every bruise, every excuse for the rest of their life, wishing they had a higher standard. And in closing, I don't know everyone in this room, but I do know one thing about you. Chances are everyone comes to you for counsel, for great advice. You know why? Because you're a leader. You've been taking care of your family, your friends, your peers, your coworkers, and that's pretty darn cool. But guess what? It's time to change it up a little bit. It's time to get selfish. It's time to draw an imaginary line in the sand and step across and say, it's my turn. I love you, family. I love you, friends. I've given you everything I've got. Now I'm going to start taking care of me. We draw that imaginary line and we step across and say, it is my turn. I've got that idea for a book or a movie or an entrepreneurial dream. I will not take it to my grave. And like Napoleon Hill said, our greatest success will always come just one step beyond our greatest setback. So if you're going through a challenging time, great news, you're in great company. We draw that line in the sand and we step across and we embrace it and say, it is my turn. I've got something so special inside of me, I've been afraid to share it with the world, and that day begins today. I'm tired of seeing other people not as smart as me have more success. That will not be my story. We draw that line, and we step across, and we say, it is my turn. And when you want to say die, when you want to throw in the towel and say, I can't go another step further, that's when you kick it in the most. Like Les Brown says, you've got greatness inside of you. Never give up and never surrender, because you too could be 3 feet from gold. Thank you.